And go. Well, hello. Welcome to American Reversion. How are you all today? I'm Steve Smith. Welcome to all the new people and all the old people, all the new subscribers. We keep getting a lot of new people with us, both on YouTube and on Patreon, and it's great to have you all. What is Patreon, you ask, if you're not over there? Well, Patreon is where we put everything that we put on YouTube, plus a whole lot of other good stuff. It's kind of the secret club where you get a lot of stuff that I come across and I think it's either funny, interesting, illuminative, or something. And it's stuff you may not run across yourself. So and that's one way. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do it and get a lot of good stuff for yourself. The link is down here. Just cost you $1 and we'd love to have you. The other thing that supports this channel, and this channel is brought to you by my first book, The Reversion. That's the one I named this channel after. I don't know if we will rename the channel. Those of you who have been with us for a while know I've been talking about that, considering it. And my recent book, The Blessings of Freedom. These books, for those of you who don't know, plus number 2, 3, and 4 that go between these, are about the collapse of America and how I think it could be built back up properly. Okay, we're going to start out here. We have a studio audience today. Hallie, for those of you who know Hallie, she's sitting behind you all there. No reason to duck down. She can see over you. She just said something. And Mrs. Snerdley over there keeping an eye on me to make sure that I stay on course. That would be Kelly. Hallie just said something very interesting. She just came over to visit for a while. And she had just had a discussion. I can't get into this too much. I'm just going to throw this nugget out to you before I get to the important stuff. She just had a conversation with a guy before she came over here who is with FEMA. And he's leaving FEMA. And he has said, how should I put this? I can't say too much about it. I'll kind of leave it. He's leaving FEMA for very important reasons because of what he sees coming up and doesn't want to be there when it happens. So do with that what you will. Now I'll start with probably the most important story of the day, and that's about men's underwear. You ask yourself, how could that possibly be? Well, it's not really, but I thought I'd start with that before I get to the idiot-in-chief's statements about that was the Kelly giggle behind you there. That's why I fell in love with her to begin with, was her giggle. But and living with me for 18 years, she's had plenty of opportunities to practice that. Anyway, I came across this before we get to the serious stuff, and that is apparently there is a correlation between what's in men's underwear. Well, I shouldn't put it that way, should I? It's a correlation of men's underwear and the economy. Alan Greenspan, and this comes from CNN Business. Okay, don't say CNN because when it comes to business, you just got to look at the particulars, not the filter through which it says. Let's see. It says here, former Federal Reserve head Alan Greenspan has a keen interest in men's underwear. Now the way things have been going recently, that could open a very wide door to a lot of things. Couldn't Ed? He says, they continue, not because he's preoccupied with the evolving fashions of nether garments. Rather, he sees underwear sales as a key economic predictor. Okay, I will save you all the agony of reading all this kind of stuff. But it comes down to this, because I read it so you wouldn't have to. Apparently, that when one of the foremost indicators, the early indicators of a coming recession, is a downturn in the sales in men's underwear. And Greenspan says somewhere in here, let's see, he once told me, this is some NPR correspondent, this guy's name's Robert Krulwich. He once told me that the garment that is most private is male underwear because he says underpants, but I don't say underpants. You see, underpants is like, I don't know, a 2-year-old or something like. Men don't say underpants. Apparently Alan Greenspan does. I don't. The garment that is most private is male underwear because nobody sees it except people in the locker room, and who cares there, right? So apparently when we are about to experience, or when people are anticipating a coming recession, that's the first thing we see a dip in sales is men's underwear. Did you know that, Mrs. Snerdley?
I did not know that.
She didn't know that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I see in her eyes, and here's what she's thinking. She says, well, if I had judged it by yours, I would have anticipated a recession for the last 20 years. So you know how it is with us guys. I mean, we don't care, right? We wear them until they look like jock straps. Okay, so now we've...
He's not lying.
That's right. That's right. Okay, I save my money for important stuff like Murphy's Stout and things like that. Okay, we have that out of the way. Let's get to the important things here. We know this country is in trouble, and usually in the past we have thought, well, if there are threats against our country, it comes from outside, some bad guy, some boogeyman wanting to do stuff. Well, we have our own boogeymen here. Let's see, how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? I'm going to put them in a little bit of different order here, if you don't mind, just sticking with me. And starting off with, okay. All right. What's this guy's name anyway? Joey. Yeah, that's his name. Joey in Chief, you've heard about this, but it's been a busy weekend and I've had other things going on. He demands that Putin be removed from power. Now, everybody with half a working brain cell, when they heard that, went, whoa, no, what? Right? Who in the world does that? Who in the world? Okay, either a stark, raving maniac, a total idiot, or somebody wanting to start a war. Multiple choice, I'll leave it up to you all. Let me start with this. This is a Breitbart article from a couple of days ago. It says President Joe Biden. Oh, doesn't that sound, to put those words together, doesn't it? President Joe Biden demanded that Russian President Vladimir Putin be removed from power in a dramatic speech in Warsaw, Poland on Saturday. So this is just a couple of days old. It's still Monday, so I'm within the window of relevance. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power, Biden cried out at the conclusion of his speech. How about that? You see, it's unclear whether Biden's comment was part of his prepared remarks, but then again, how many of his remarks are part of his prepared remarks, yeah? Notwithstanding the brutality of Vladimir Putin, let there be no doubt that this war has already been a strategic failure for Russia. That's some more of Joe's propaganda. He goes on to say how horrible the Ruskies are and how brave the Ukrainians are and all that. But this is the sentence that escalates the situation. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. How many different things could that mean? You all know as well as I do. So let's track this little pony to its logical conclusion. Keeping within the president's pony soldier remarks. Next, we have from the Wall Street Journal, Biden expands the nuclear doctrine to protect Ukraine. Well, so President Joe Biden is trying to protect Ukraine from further Russian escalation. Okay, he just said that he has to be removed, right, from power. But now they're saying that he's trying to protect Ukraine from further Russian escalation. I guess I was going to say there's some schizophrenia in there, but I guess that's included in one of the options that I offered you all earlier. So he publicly expanding policy justifications for a U.S. nuclear attack, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to read a few paragraphs of this, and then we will get back to some other things. The leaked expansion reverses his 2020 campaign pledge, which declared that the sole purpose, that's important, of the sole purpose, not a purpose, the sole purpose of U.S. nuclear weapons would be the deterrence of a nuclear attack. The reversal was leaked to the Wall Street Journal as U.S. officials worry that Russia might escalate the border war in Ukraine amid the crippling setbacks caused by the U.S.-supplied anti-tank missile. Now, in order to believe that, you have to believe a lot of the propaganda coming out from our side saying that Russia is being, decimated all over the place, is going horribly for them. It's interesting how the numbers have been so fluid in that, though. So now they're bringing us up that things are going so bad for Russia that that they may be pushed to consider biological and chemical attacks and increasing. Of course, it would have nothing to do with the U.S. president calling for their president's removal, right? It would just have to do with the fact that they're just bad people. A growing number of U.S. experts and advocates are warning Biden's team of nuclear war amid the confusion and emotion of the high-stakes battle in which Russia is purportedly trying to recover Russian-majority provinces from breakaway Ukraine. Biden's new policy said the fundamental, that's the difference here, the fundamental, not the sole purpose of the U.S. nuclear armory will be the deterrence of foreign nuclear attacks, according to the Journal. That carefully worded formulation, however, leaves open the possibilities that nuclear weapons could also be used in extreme circumstances to deter enemy conventional, biological, chemical, and possibly cyber attacks, said the officials. Okay. Chemical attacks, biological attacks. Whose biolabs are those over there in Ukraine? And do you remember when at the first, and everybody was crying about, the Russians are shooting at the Chernobyl nuclear reactor? What kind of idiot would do that? They're not trying to take out the nuclear reactor, but we had stories claiming they're doing that, how horrible. Just like the stories about they are targeting civilians, they are targeting maternity hospitals, right? Well, if something gets loose over there with the biolabs, they're going to say the Russians did it, right? Who is the one who brought to our attention the fact that there are U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine? Was it someone named Vladimir Putin? Yes, it was. Okay. So we'll go down here, and that was just a little stroll down memory lane there. The extreme circumstances policy returns the United States to the policy used in the Cold War. And here's an excerpt from the Journal. During the Cold War, the U.S. reserved the right to use nuclear weapons in response to a conventional attack to offset the Soviet bloc's numerical advantage in conventional forces. After giving up its chemical and biological weapons in accordance with the arms control treaties, not to mention giving up all of their nukes, which at the time they were the third largest nuclear power in the world, but Ukraine gave up its nukes in exchange for our and NATO's promise that we would protect them. A couple of other things were into that. Russia promised we won't invade you, but they also said, but we don't want you putting forces into Ukraine. You all know this because you're smart, but I'm saying this for anybody who's coming along and may not be familiar with it. They said, we don't want your missiles and your military installations on our border, right? Which makes sense because we didn't want missiles in Cuba. We don't want Chinese or Russian bases down south of El Paso, right? Okay. That goes clear back to the Monroe Doctrine when we said we don't want the old world coming into the new world. So this is nothing that they are assuming an unreasonable stance on. So after giving up its chemical and biological weapons in accordance with arms control treaties, the U.S. later said it was reserving the right to use nuclear weapons to deter attacks with poison gas and germ weapons in some circumstances. Okay, if you were going to nuke somebody, And right after you push the button, then you would have the New York Times and all those others, your buddies on MSN and CNN and all that. So we have just received a special secret communique from Pentagon, White House, and everybody else who think they're important, that a chemical release was detected coming out in eastern Ukraine, and we have responded with the necessary force to prevent it. Boom, right? Easily done. We'll never know what happens. So, first he says that Putin needs to be removed. And then he says, we're changing from the sole purpose of our nuclear arsenal to prevent to a fundamental, which would mean one of several or many. Okay. Let's see. Now, the rest of the world, let me go back here something else, because I'm going to skip. Okay, I'm going to skip over a couple things here because there's other things that I want to get in. Of course, the world. First off, the White House the next day had to walk Biden's comments back and saying, "Oh no, he didn't mean that Putin should be removed. He meant something else entirely, something like I don't know. We don't know what he meant, like so many things that he says, but he didn't mean that." And then of course he caught hell from all of the NATO members and the our European allies, and some allies of Russia, naturally, who said, "Well, that was an extremely irresponsible thing to say, and it kind of speaks to the stability of the American president." I agree. Now let's see something else that Uncle Joe is talking about. He's comparing the Ukrainian war refugees to migrant crisis at America's southern border. Is this leadership or is this leadership? President Joe Biden on Saturday, that was just yesterday, it was 2 days ago, I'm sorry, compared the plight of Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war in their country to the migrants crossing the southern border of the United States. Really? How do you compare those two, except in a comparison that says nothing like each other? I guess I could compare it that way, couldn't I? Okay. He says, and he's talking here to somebody or other, I don't know who he's talking to. He's talking to Polish President Andrzej Duda in Warsaw. He praised Poland for accepting millions of Ukrainian refugees after Russia started bombing their country. Yeah, right. He says, "We understand that because we have in our southern border thousands of people," he probably did say in instead of on our southern border, "thousands of people a day, literally, not figuratively." What does that mean? Isn't that kind of like all these 19-year-old girls say, "I literally such and such," Literally, not figurative. How do you have figuratively thousands of people on your border? Okay. Well, anyway, he wants to assure this person that we understand entirely because we have thousands of people a day, literally, not figuratively, trying to get into the United States. Trying? We're giving them the big old lay down there. All they got to do is show up. He made this comment signifying solidarity with Poland. He promised the United States will accept Ukrainian war refugees as well. So I guess we're up to, let's see, we believe that we, the United States, should do our part relative to Ukraine as well by opening our borders to another 100,000 people. You don't have to open something that's already opened, okay? But we're gonna open them to another 100,000 people. He announced blah, blah, blah. He would open the United States. He would open. How does one guy like this say, "I get to open the country"? Now, regardless of our laws, regardless of anything else, I'm opening the country. So he's going to open up to 100,000 Ukrainians, allowing them to live in the United States legally and possibly receive work permits. Well, if they're going to live here, they ought to work, so they ought to have work permits because we're tired of supporting people who won't work. As a matter of fact, I would be happy to exchange 1 for 1 or 1 for 2 or whatever any of our people over here who won't work for any number of Ukrainians, Mexicans, Guatemalans, I don't care what, who will work. Excuse me, I'm getting a frog in my throat. We take as a sacred obligation, Article 5, a sacred obligation, Article 5, he repeated himself, and you can count on that, for your freedom is ours. Right. Okay. And then he goes down here, the president, I'm going to have to be careful with what I'm saying here, because this looks like it could get kind of dicey with him involved. The president spoke prior to meeting Ukrainian refugees in front of the media, where he engaged with children who fled their home country. I don't like the sound of that, engaged with children. You see all those little children just wanted to, this is him talking. You see all those little children just want a hug. They just want to say thanks. He commented to the press. It's after the meeting. It just makes you so damn proud, and they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna get away from old Uncle Joe engaging with children there and move on to this next. A senior UN official has warned that Europe must either pay for more food aid abroad or face a hell on earth. Okay, this is by Peter Cattle over at Breitbart. Pay for the food of the developing world or face another migrant crisis. This is the ultimatum the head of the UN's World Food Program has put to Europe's leader. We used to call that extortion. You know? We used to call that, if you don't want, well, as a matter of fact, we have so-called leaders of certain groups here in the United States who have essentially said the same thing. If you don't want your cities to burn, you need to give more social programs. So that's what the world is being told. He says, the World Food Bank Executive Director David Beasley says, we're billions short. And of course, you know what that means? We're billions short. That means, America, you better give up some billions. Failure to provide this year a few extra billion dollars. Do you like that? Extra billion. Mrs. Snerdley, do you have a couple of extra billion that you've been hiding from me?
If I'm hiding them, I can't tell you.
See why I married her? She's very smart. So we apparently, I don't think she is. I don't think she's hiding billions from me. She'd dress better if she was. We're billions short, said the World Food Bank Executive Director David Beasley. Failure to provide this year a few extra $1 billion means you're going to have famine, destabilization, and here is the threat, and mass migration. Means we're coming to your house. We're coming to your country. No, it doesn't really mean that, because it's not these people that are saying it. It means we're sending these people to your country. It's kind of like Jesse Jackson and his Operation Push, right? Going around to the corporations and saying, you give me $1 million and I won't talk bad about your company, and have a whole bunch of people standing outside your headquarters protesting and yelling and screaming and stuff like that. So this is nothing more than extra. There are no extra billions. The United States is $30 trillion in debt, with close to $200 trillion in unfunded future liabilities. You all know that. And what they're taking this from is they're stealing it now from our great-grandkids. Our kids, our children are already, everything they make is going to be used to pay off any kind of phony debt that the government has accumulated, unless they get this war they're looking for. Our grandkids have already been strapped. Their taxes are going to be high to pay for the next bunch. And now I'm sure we're down to the great-grandkids here with these few billions. If you think we've got hell on earth now, you just get ready. The former governor of South Carolina continued. Who is this former governor of South Carolina? How'd he get in here? Maybe I don't know. If we neglect Northern Africa, Northern Africa's coming to Europe. Tell me you know what Northern Africa ought to do? They ought to stay in Northern Africa. That's what they ought to do. And they ought to dig, they've got churches all over the place. The church that we just left spent millions of dollars digging wells all over Africa for those people to, you know, to, do you remember Sam Kinison? I didn't like him. I didn't like his delivery. He was funny in some cases, but he says, you know, we have deserts too, but we don't live in them. So anyway, if we neglect the Middle East is coming to Europe and then to a hometown near you. That means America. Folks, I'm sorry. I have run far over here, and we're coming to the end. I have so much more that I want to do. Maybe I'll make a second one here in just a minute, but I need to close this one down, or it's going to close it down for me. So you all leave me your thoughts. Please share this with people that you know. You know our country's in trouble. Whether we're going to be able to fix it or going to have to rebuild it from the ruins, we don't really know yet. But in either case, it needs as many of us to be a part of it as possible. It needs you to be a part of it. It needs everybody that you know to be a part of it if you can get them on board. So please share this with them. Be with us next time. I think I'm going to put a second one out right as soon as I'm done with this one. And as soon as I have another cup of coffee. And remember, America needs a reversion or something. Needs you to be a part of it. And you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.